Hello?
Wow. Hi, everybody. Woo, welcome. Oh, it's been a while. We're in February.
A little bit.
February, right? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, man. Okay, well, I think it's been about. Sorry, I heard myself in the background, and that was really fun. So, always great hearing myself. Anyway, sorry guys. Welcome. Hi. It's been about 8 months since we last did an update. We're here with our semi-annual ESPHome live stream. I wanted to keep it as hemisphere neutral as we can finally, because Jesse's in the spring, we're here in the fall in the northern hemisphere. So it's October 14th for us here on my side of everything, but Jesse's over in the future. It's October 15th for him. And today is 2025.10 release for ESPHome Live. ESPHome, correct?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, before we jump into everything, let's actually do a round of introductions. And we got some big news to share here. So if you guys don't know who I am Missy Quarry. I am the community and social media manager at the ESPHome Foundation.
Hi, I'm Jesse. So I lead the ESPHome projects.
I am Keith, and I work at Nabukasa on hardware and software stuff with Jesse and Nick and some others.
Hey, I'm Nate. I'm a guest here today, founder of Konnected. I'm happy that Konnected recently joined the Works with Home Assistant program. So here to talk a little bit about that and some of the things that we've done with ESPHome.
So I'm Nick. I'm a ESPHome and Home Assistant developer, and I do a lot of things for the Open Home Foundation.
Yes, he does. Nick actually just passed Paulus as the person doing the most commits to Home Assistant. So that's a big achievement, actually. It's 12 years, and finally someone passed Paulus, and that's Nick. So he's done great things. We'll talk more about that here soon, though. All right. So Jesse, actually, I wanted to let you talk a little bit about the first big announcement that we've done, because I don't think we've talked about it much anywhere else, but we're expanding the team, aren't we? Or we
Yes.
have.
We did expand the team. Excuse me, Steve. Yes. So Jonathan, we have hired Jonathan Swoboda. Was it last month?
Yeah, 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
He's a new full-time developer working on ESPHome for the Open Home Foundation. And so, he's doing a lot of. He was a contributor already. He was spending a lot of time on the ESPHome code, making pull requests, reviews. So we thought it would made perfect sense.
Yeah. We're excited about that. Being able to expand our teams is something that a lot of the contributions that everybody makes to us through Nabukasa, where Keith actually works, helps us make these big decisions and expanding everything. We're actually hiring a few more for the Home Assistant team right now. I believe we are still looking for applicants for the community lead position, which would be starting the new community team at the foundation. It'd be a really big thing. So here in a second, I'll drop the links into the chat for people who want to see any job openings that we have at the foundation. But as we continue expanding, it means we actually get to work on a lot of really cool things that we maybe wouldn't have been able to work on so quickly. And one of those things, I'm actually going to hand it over to Keith, because Keith is probably our best expert in one of the biggest pieces of feedback, I'll say it like that people had when we launched the ZWA2. Right, Keith?
Yeah, it came up a lot, and unsurprisingly so, right? Like, people want as much flexibility, and that's kind of the whole purpose of the platform, right? Is flexibility, use what you want, where you want, when you want, and so on. So, we we got something working for the ZWA2. We have ESPHome support now for what we call the Z-Wave proxy. And it allows you to use for those of you who don't know, the ZWA2 shipped with a bit of a non-traditional approach in terms of handling the USB connection that it has to connect to Z-Wave.js and Home Assistant. The way that traditionally worked and works with all of the existing Z-Wave dongles more or less is you have a Z-Wave chip, the ZG23 and the ZWA2 specifically, and then you have a USB to UART bridge. It's basically just a chip that takes a USB connection and quote unquote converts it to a serial connection. And that's how Z-Wave.js talks to the Z-Wave mesh network, be it long range is actually more of a star topology, but in any event, regardless, so everything flows over this. It's basically just a serial port. What we did is we shipped ZWA2 with kind of just a dumbed down firmware on the ESP32S3, and all it did was take the USB port and bridge it to the serial port. But the whole reason we took that approach is because we thought, what if we could do more with it? You know, like, what if we could do more than just USB? So that's why it got an ESP32S3 instead of one of the more common bridges like a CP2102 or FT232 or CH340, something like that. So Dominic and I have been working for the last, 3-4 months. And Nick also jumped in too and helped us with some optimizing, and Jesse as well with some API stuff. We're all involved here to some extent, right? But we got and it really is more or less doing what serial over IP is doing, but it's got a little intelligence on the ends of it. So it's able to be a little more forgiving if your network has some latency on it. And in particular with Wi-Fi, there can be a lot of variability. If you've got a poor signal, if there's interference from other devices like your microwave or something else, there can be some latency there. And the solution that we've built allows you to use either the ESP32S3 that's built into the ZWA2 itself, or you can connect it to an external board. In this case, we've got a WaveShare board that supports power over Ethernet, which was the request that everybody really wanted to see there, right? And so what that does is it actually uses the factory firmware on the ZWA2 and then uses a component in ESPHome to connect over USB to the ZWA2 and talk to it as though it were just a serial device. So it allows you to bridge your ZWA2 onto your Ethernet network that way. And of course, you get the benefit of PoE, right? So you don't need a separate power cable to power the thing. So that's also helpful. And of course, anywhere you can get a Cat5, Cat6 cable or better, you can plug in your ZWA2 there. Or if you want to use Wi-Fi, then we have a ESPHome configuration that you can install on your ZWA2, specifically on the ESP32S3 that's in there. And then it'll talk back to Z-Wave.js and Home Assistant via Wi-Fi. So you can use that as well. Now, I think it's important to call out that, you are bridging the Z-Wave protocol over your LAN, over IP. So when you introduce additional layers between A and B, there's going to be just a little bit of additional latency. And we found that both Dominic and I have been testing this a lot. I think Nick played around with it a good bit too. That it does add a little bit of latency, but if you've got reasonably good network conditions, it actually works really well. And in fact, the latency is so minimal that it's pretty much not perceivable by a human. Now, that said, again, if you've got a poor Wi-Fi signal, or if you're layering a bunch of infrastructure between, for example, if you put your ZWA2 on one continent and connect it to your Home Assistant on a different continent by way of a VPN, you're going to be adding some latency, right? And so this is not a solution for that problem. Okay, so I think it's important to keep that in mind, temper your expectations. But, just within a home network or a small office network, if you are connecting these two devices more or less directly, just with a simple switch, or even if you've got a VLAN set up and you want to route from one VLAN to another, It should work very acceptably for that purpose. That we found the latency is especially over wired Ethernet is very consistent, very predictable, and really not noticeable by a human. So it's a pretty neat solution. So we're very excited. I was excited to get that out, and again, thanks to Jesse and Nick and Dominic for getting this implemented. It was definitely a team effort. We're excited to see how it performs for people. I know in the past, people have used serial over IP, at least for wired connection, which you can do in a number of different ways. But it's a bit of a struggle to set up. It's not as straightforward as what we've built into Home Assistant and Z-Wave.js with ESPHome. But it also lacks the intelligence on the ends in terms of handling message acknowledgements and things like that. So it's maybe we're hoping that this works out to be a bit more stable. I've been using it for about 3 weeks now with the PoE version of this, and I've got almost 40 Z-Wave devices here now. So it's been rock solid for that, and I don't notice there's no perceivable delay in terms of automations firing or things reacting, anything like that. So I'm quite happy with it. I think Dominic has found the same. I don't know, Nick, you were playing around with it a little bit at home, I think, right?
I have two setups. They both work great, but they're both Ethernet. I mean, I hardwire everything in my house.
Yes.
I don't want to deal with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and like solid agree on that, right? Like I'm very much an advocate of if you can plug it in with a wired connection, like assuming you don't have to tear apart your house to do it, right? Like if I have to something in it, it is right. Like I want to patch the drywall and repaint and everything. It's half the fun. But I just moved earlier this year, and I actually just cut open walls running Cat 6 cable because that's what I do. But it is, if you can use Ethernet, if you can use wired Ethernet, even if you don't even have to specifically use PoE, you can get a PoE injector if you don't have a switch that supports PoE itself. You can buy a PoE injector. They're like 12 or 15 bucks for a cheap one, and use that with the WaveShare board just the same. So that works really well too. But yeah, point being, if you can wire it, I would definitely encourage that. I think that you'll find that it's just much more predictable. Wi-Fi is great, and certainly it's wonderful for portable devices, smartphones, laptops, anything like that, and it's IoT stuff in general. It's just very convenient. But you are going to have if you do that, you're going to be subject to all the things that come with it: latency, unpredictable signal, and the things of that nature. And if you've got a good Wi-Fi network at home, you probably won't notice. I tested it here; had everything was sub 100 millisecond on there, which is quite acceptable for that type of stuff. But your mileage will vary. So, set your expectations accordingly. And like I said, putting a lot of networking layers in between, anything that adds latency is going to degrade that experience. So I think it's important to understand that this doesn't solve that problem. This is very much just a means to add some flexibility in terms of where you choose to place your ZWA2. Now you can put it on your kitchen table.
Someone's noticed your bird, Keith.
Oh yeah, I should probably close the door in the background. He's being a little chatty. I'm on the other side of the house. I thought that would be good enough, but
that's crazy. For those of you who haven't seen Keith on live streams, he is a little bird who gets chatty. You hear him chatting around in the background sometimes. So that's just what this is. For those of you who have been listening to Keith as well, this whole portable Z-Wave is what we actually ended up calling it for now, but it's it's experiment. It's still an experiment.
Yes.
Like greatly so. Like it was pushed out literally yesterday to the public to make sure that it would be ready in time to talk about on this big forum that we can actually talk about it a little bit more. So it is still an experiment. We want people to test it out in their homes because, like you said, you and Dominic have gone through and made these tests, but it's not nearly like what it will end up being in the real world. So the link is in chat for everybody for the full details that Keith just went over, and including the details on the latency. We actually posted the numbers for what you will likely end up seeing. It's an estimate. So we'll actually hopefully hear more from you guys on how it works.
Yeah, keep in mind those numbers are rough. Your mileage is going to vary, especially for Wi-Fi. There's a lot to consider there. I mean, the humidity and air temperature can impact Wi-Fi, as wild as it sounds. But like stuff like that comes into the picture, building and construction materials. So I could go on, but in any event, yeah. So as Missy said, we are classifying this as experimental. We found it works well, but the whole reason we wanted to get it out there before this stream was, one, so that we could, if anybody has any questions, maybe we can talk to that a little bit. And then also we need the feedback. How can we refine this? How can we make it better? We build these things, hardware and software, and we iterate on them constantly, and a lot of that, almost all of it, is driven by feedback from the community. So that's what we're looking for here. This is no exception to that. So if you try it, definitely circle back. And if anyone does do the crossing continent thing, I'd love to hear about that. I think I know how it's going to go, but if you do it, it would be interesting.
Yeah, well, ESPHome supports WireGuard as well, so you could just hook it straight up to the VPN at your house.
Yep.
Yeah, so Josiah, give it a shot. Let us know how it goes from Italy to New Zealand. I think that'll work out lovely for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I installed the Wi-Fi firmware on my ZWA2 just before the stream, and I mean, I click turn on a switch and it turns on instantly. It's not humanly noticeable, the delay.
Yeah, across the Pacific Ocean might be, worse. The speed of light is disappointingly slow. So
yeah. Right. Exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't have much better to work with.
Our goal was sub 100 milliseconds, and we smashed that. So thank you again, Nick and Jesse and Dominic, and it was a team effort to get all this going. So.
Truly was. Looks like actually we've got Tube saying he's going to publish the binaries for his dual radio kits. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah,
that's great. Tubes is wonderful. Tubes does a lot of Z-Wave and Zigbee stuff. We love Tubes.
Well, yeah, and actually that brings up another good point, Misty, is this is not something that is locked or restricted to ZWA2. Realistically, it should work with more or less any Z-Wave chip or interface. The thing is we just haven't tested that. We haven't even tested that, yet alone tried to build configurations for it and whatnot. But it shouldn't take too much effort to do that. So I think people will figure out pretty quickly what the YAML, how that needs to change in terms of the ESPHome configuration. It's a fairly straightforward change. The serial messages are largely the same, just newer iterations of Z-Wave have added more message types and features, but the proxy doesn't really care about that. It just sends the messages through. So it should be, we'll see where that goes.
No, it's great. This is really good stuff because you're right. It's us listening to the community and what they actually want. And sure, it's not direct PoE. It's not a device with actual connector where you can do straight PoE, but it's really good replacement. I think this is one of the most unique solutions we could actually do instead of, trying to just tell people to figure it out on their own. We provided a really cool and unique solution for it.
Indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, I didn't see any specific question. Oh, wait, actually, has anybody looked into making something that could report signal details of a thread network? Do you know? This would probably be a Marcel question, but...
Thread is, it was a Thread, or Marcel or maybe Nikita would know more about that. As it relates to the proxy, I'll put this out there. We haven't looked at doing that specifically yet. We'll see. We'll see where.
We have, an open thread component for ESPHome. So an ESPHome device, an ESP32C6 or an H2 is able to act as a thread device on a thread network, and that can still use the ESPHome API to talk with Home Assistant, but otherwise we haven't done anything else with thread.
Yet.
Yet. We know we all have big ambitions, so that's what we're doing here. Oh man. Okay, so looks like I think we're actually good to move on to some of the bigger important updates we actually have. It's probably just more of the general stuff since we actually last spoke, kind of what we do for the Home Assistant ones. We end up going over the big changes that happen. Some of them are actually breaking. Some of them are big improvements for updates. So we actually got kind of both of those with it for it. So I kind of wanted to start it off with general ESP IDF updates. So who wants to take that? Jesse, you want that?
Sure.
There was a framework shift that ended up happening, and there's some updates that have happened since then, right?
Nick might be a little bit in a better position.
Oh,
to
sure. I'll be happy to take that one. So on ESP32, we had Arduino as it used to get the precompiled binaries, and now we build it as an IDF component. So that's like, the downside is it takes a lot longer to build. The upside is you're going to get about 20 to 30 kilobytes of RAM back. And if you're using the web server, you're going to get another 8 kilobytes of RAM back. So the background to this is when we updated to a newer version, we had lots of complaints about when people would compile, they would run out of space on their older ESP32 boards because they just didn't have enough flash. So this switching to a component solves that problem because we're not building all the extra stuff in anymore. So you're going to get much smaller binaries. Again, you still are going to have a longer build time, but you end up with a way less bloated build. So you're saving lots of RAM, you're saving, lots of flash space. So, but, we always recommend switching to IDF directly. In the release notes, there's a link to the guide on how to switch to IDF. There's only I think 4 or 5 components that aren't supported on IDF on ESP32 at this point, but the vast majority are. And when you switch, you'll see a huge drop in RAM also for that. Can we still call it the Arduino framework, or should we call it the Qualcomm framework? I'm not sure. Maybe they'll rename it. They do tend to absorb everything and change the name.
They do. I was thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. We do love a good absorption, don't we?
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely a major change. But since the bulk of devices have already moved to IDF anyway, most people probably won't notice. But the really good thing for us as developers is we've been maintaining kind of separate code for each framework. So we've managed to delete about 60% of the duplicate framework code already. I mean, more to come, but that means we have more time to focus on bug fixes on IDF because we're not having to maintain 2 different framework-specific code paths, which is...
Now it's just ESP32 code. It's not ESP32 Arduino code or ESP32 IDF code. It's just one.
Yeah,
one
so much better for all of our users because it's, we can spend more time fixing bugs on one framework instead of being split time between both. So lots of maintenance burden reduction. So good for everyone all around.
Yeah, the reduced binary size is a big one because that was coming up a lot, especially with some of the older devices that have smaller, 2 or 4 megs of flash. People are exhausting that, and especially if you build a Bluetooth proxy and the binary would just go, and so it's been helpful, and kudos to Nick for doing so much in terms of getting those sizes down. Like, if anybody's looked, I mean, Jesse and I've made the joke already, but if anybody's looked at the list of PRs, we're it's all just B Draco.
It's probably 50%.
Yeah. But I mean, it's wonderful, right? We're thrilled to have that, have that.
But also, he makes lots of little PRs, and so it's easy to review them.
Yes. Very good point.
Try to keep everything under 100 lines. Not always possible, but
Yes.
That's the best kind of PR. 100 lines, read it, review it, merge it, and you can do it quickly. And we get something we definitely have struggled with. We get these 2,000-3,000 line PRs which sit around for months because it's always easy to find a time block to review a small PR. When you have contributors submit 3,000 line PRs, like it's exponential how much time it takes to review them. So
Mhm.
if you guys are interested in contributing, keep your PRs small. I know it's a general advice for any project, but we can merge them quickly if they're small.
Exactly. Well, and the other point too is big PRs tend to keep changing. Like there's a couple PRs I've had my eyes on, and I start to review them, but then all of a sudden there's 10 more commits, and like there's 300 lines have changed, and I'm like, I have to go back through this again. So this compounds the problem, right? So it's smaller PRs, better, clear descriptions.
Yeah. JLo wants to know, thanks to this, can we start exploring Bluetooth and voice again on the same device?
Probably.
So we'll talk a little more about that later in the stream, but we've done a lot of optimizations for memory and just flash and RAM. So yes, you probably can run both at the same time now, but every release in the last 4 months has gotten closer to that goal. But I don't want to steal too much thunder from the next topic. So
what is the next topic?
We somehow rolled away from the ESP-IDF updates because Bidreko started talking about the optimizations again, because that's just everything. That's most of what the updates are since February, really, is just Nick going through and making everything more optimized. No, the Arduino as an IDF component is basically rolled into the whole updates for ESP-IDF. So I actually kind of want to drag Nate, who's been sitting patiently there in the top center, waiting for us to get to him. Like he mentioned in his intro, Konnected recently joined the Works with Home Assistant program, which actually means they're made for ESPHome by default, because they have to work really well with ESPHome in order to make it into the Home Assistant program overall. So Nate, tell us a little bit about the work you've done for deploying to connected devices.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, and it's great to finally get that Works with HA badge. I've been a Home Assistant user myself for like probably 6 years, 5 years, something like that. I started Konnected in 2017, so it's been a long journey. And then I think we adopted ESPHome kind of as like the preferred platform firmware going forward, maybe 2-ish years ago. So when I started Konnected, well, first of all, if you guys aren't familiar with Konnected, we're a product company. We make a couple of different devices. We got our start in the alarm panel. So this is a Konnected Alarm Panel Pro. It basically like is a drop-in replacement for a traditional alarm system panel. So it's got Ethernet and PoE, and then some inputs and outputs. So for your wired sensors like contact sensors and motion sensors and that kind of thing. And then you can use that with Home Assistant and other smart home apps to basically make your own DIY smart home alarm system. And then our newer kind of product line is the garage opener. This is our top seller now, the GDO Black. And this is made for like the Chamberlain and LiftMaster garage openers with Security Plus. We learned a lot from like the Rat GDO project and actually rewrote some of the communication that Rat GDO kind of pioneered and made it work with ESP-IDF. And so the inside here is the ESP32S3, and it's running on the ESP-IDF framework, and that's all open source also. We have a little C++ library called GDOlib, which incorporates all of that, and then that can be compiled and linked into, our ESPHome component called Spec plus GDO. And all this is on the Konnected-IO GitHub, so everything's there. And what I kind of wanted to talk about today, not necessarily ESPHome itself, but the challenges around building a consumer product with ESPHome and then allowing the end users to customize and update that. And the challenge that I tried to figure out as we transitioned from our original firmware platform, where it was basically just one firmware that was on every device, and it was configured at runtime. Basically, our app would send like a JSON payload to the device, and it would store some stuff in flash RAM, and it would do its thing. But ESPHome, and the way ESPHome works, and the way it's so optimized and works beautifully, is that most of those configurations are done at build time or at compile time. And so that was a challenge when you have a device like the alarm panel, where these IOs can be configured either as an input for like a door or window, or an output for like a trigger for a relay or something like that. And they could be named differently, and they could represent different things. And so I was trying to figure out how do we make this work and make it flexible enough. And so that's where kind of our ESPHome cloud build service came to be. And basically, long story short, and keep in mind, I know the audience here is probably pretty technical and have made a bunch of ESPHome YAML files in the past. But if you say YAML to 98% of the population, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? So we try not to use the word YAML. We just say, go in the Konnected app. And so basically what I've built is, and I'll try to pull this up as I'm talking here, just as a visual, is like a little GUI in our app that then generates the YAML for an ESPHome build on our back end. And so that's just some basic. It's an application that I built in Ruby because I've been doing Ruby for a long time, and it's not like there's any real reason why it's in Ruby. But anyways, and that creates a YAML file for your specific device. And then I put together like a little cloud service. And this is also on my GitHub. And I don't know if I can post the link in here, or maybe Missy can help me with that. I'm not really sure how this works, but it's very creatively named ESPHome-EC2-build. And that's on the Konnected-IO GitHub. And basically, it's an EC2 instance, Docker container, I think, and that I've set up an infrastructure where when our application basically generates a YAML file, puts it in S3, and then some AWS magic happens, like S3 events or something like that, and then it picks it up, and then it compiles that firmware on our EC2 instance. And then when it's done, or if it fails, it sends a notification back to my app, all through the AWS magic. And then we can notify the user that their firmware is ready. And then it delivers that basically through our mobile app and uses ESPHome's like over-the-air update mechanism, which was, by the way, was a challenge to rewrite in JavaScript for the mobile application. But we did it, and then that pushes the ESPHome build to the device on the local network, and it's all secure. You don't have any holes or anything like that in your network. So that's how it works. And there was also an interesting challenge and complication in there, in that Konnected supports a couple other smart home platforms that are cloud-based, like SmartThings and Alexa, and we orchestrate that communication between SmartThings and Alexa and our cloud. And so the Konnected, the ESP has to talk to our cloud service, and it does that through AWS IoT. And so the other challenge that we had, and this solution also solves, is that it allows us to generate certificates and credentials for each user and their device, and identify that device, and then we can inject those credentials in the compiled firmware that we then deliver securely to that device. So when you use the Konnected app and service, then we can identify your device and then give it cloud credentials, so that our cloud can uniquely identify it and tie it to you, and people don't have to worry about pasting keys or passwords or things like that. And so it works pretty well. Actually, I was looking at this last night, so I'd be happy if anybody else wanted to do something similar to this, be happy to collaborate on this, because right now I have it running on an EC2 instance, which I've sort of just arbitrarily sized based on, I don't even know what. Like, Amazon has so many thousands of different types of EC2 instances. It's fairly impossible to know which is the right one or which is the most optimal one. But you know, from time to time, it gets sort of wedged and or runs out of disk space or something like that. And so I'm trying to make some optimizations there so that happens less. But for the most part, it's working pretty well. I probably have to implement some kind of queuing system as we get more traffic to it. You know, sometimes if there's a big flood, it'll try to kick off too many builds at one time, and that will fairly quickly overwhelm the instance. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And if there's any questions, I have not. Actually, I'll look through the chat.
I was like, there's one. Do you cache the build somehow?
Well, it essentially uses like the same commands as if you were run ESPHome compile on your local machine. It creates that, you know, hidden folder and caches a bunch of stuff there. And so we leave it there for a little while and then clean it out eventually. So yes, you know, but each device has a unique ID. So like the caching on, you know, from one device to another should not interfere with each other. So it's a pretty good system.
And then does it basically mimic adopting? Basically just takes control in the device builder and then it uses an API key? Yeah,
well, kind of. Yeah, essentially. So the connected devices are, when we ship them, they have like a stock firmware on them. That's ESPHome, obviously, and it has that dashboard import so that you can adopt it into your ESPHome builder if you want to manage the firmware yourself. And so that we can't really have like two systems managing the firmware. So you kind of have to pick one, right? So if you want, you know, you want to take the DIY route, you feel free. You know, you can manage your ESPHome firmware yourself and edit your YAML and that kind of thing, and then you can update it through Home Assistant and do all the things that you would do if you were, you know, a DIYer. But I think a large population of our customers don't want to deal with that complexity, and so the other option is open the Konnected app, and we use the same like MDNS zero-conf protocol that Home Assistant uses to find the ESPHome device on the network, and then it'll show up in the app. And then once you click the settings and then build the firmware and update it for the first time, we basically just remove that dashboard import line from the configuration so that it won't show up as adoptable anymore in your ESPHome builder, and then you'll just manage it in the app from that point forward in our cloud service.
So to also further answer that question, a couple of releases ago, maybe last release, and also in combination with Home Assistant, we added a new feature to the API. Konnected could probably take advantage of this, is that if you, in your generated YAML, if you supply API and encryption with no key, when Home Assistant connects to that device, it'll actually generate an encryption key and use that going forwards to actually encrypt the API connection.
Yeah, I did see that, and I have not experimented with it too much yet. You know, one of the things that I did want to tackle first was, you know, it was kind of like terrible timing, because I remember we struggled a lot with getting the over-the-air update to work from a mobile app. You know, my mobile app is built on like what is it, Ionic framework with Angular, you know, so I don't know, say what you will about that, but it makes it easy for us to build like a cross-platform app with just client-side code. So, but getting the over-the-air update, like the original ESPHome update, where it basically pushing the binary to the device, was the way that you had to do it. And then like literally a week after we launched that, and I think I was in, was it Washington, D.C., and I saw Paul was there, and a couple other guys from Nabukasa, and they're like, oh yeah, we just launched this HTTP update service for ESPHome. And I'm like, oh god, we just spent all that time. It would have been so much easier for us to push like a URL to the device and have it update itself than have to deal with the whole, you know, binary checksum thingamajig. But,
well, you say that.
that?
Having the option is also good, because the way you have done it, you can allow the device to be on a network that doesn't have internet, an isolated network. And so because it's through the device, whereas if you do implement the HTTP only, then it needs to be able to reach out to the internet, to the server, wherever the firmware is hosted.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, so, well, I mean, it's done and it still works. So,
Yes.
but yeah, I would like to ultimately create, build something that we can take advantage of the HTTP update. And then some ideas that I have would be able to actually, for us, like for devices that are connected to our cloud, be able to kind of trigger the device to self-update itself, like turn on automatic updates, which may be useful to some people. And we would be able to do that by just basically sending like an MQTT message to the device that would say, hey, here's an update and here's the secure URL for it. We'll build the firmware for you on the server and then just push it to it. But anyways,
Well, I mean, that can still work with the HTTP side, right? So the Home Assistant voice PE that we have, and also the now firmware for the ZWA2 that uses the Wi-Fi, or the Wi-Fi proxy firmware for this, they will periodically reach out to the manifest. We have a manifest.json file, which includes the update information. And so if that changes, basically you get a prompt to actually update the firmware directly with HTTP. And so internally in automations in the configuration, you could actually make it auto update, or at least have a toggle for the user to say auto update, and do that, self-contained within the device, just by knowing where the manifest is for that specific device.
Cool. Maybe we'll chat about that at some point later.
Sure.
Once I circle around to it. I see one question on the chat: if the connected boards can handle WiGAN. The answer is yes. I haven't built it. But why is that so funny?
Jesse and I keep hitting the button to hide the show and hide the comment at the same time, so that's
I
why it's
know,
flashing back and forth.
Yeah, so WiGAN is like a keypad standard. I haven't built it into our our cloud build, so it's not like a supported feature, but it is supported by ESPHome, and it just takes up 2 GPIO, so it's going to take up 2 inputs on the alarm panel. So you're going to lose 2 of the 12 zones, but it should work. I need to play with it more to make it like a supported thing.
That would be cool. Yeah, I have a reader somewhere, a keypad reader here somewhere. I don't know where it's gone, but it'd be cool to be able to wire that up to the connected panel that I have in my roof.
Yeah.
Because I have the Konnected Alarm Panel Pro here set up. So yeah.
Cool. So I mean, that's just one I wanted to share. I don't know. Do you guys want this GitHub link? Like, I'll send it to you, Mitzi,
the link.
I'll send it to you, Mitzi, and then you can disperse it if you want to. But that's
absolutely.
That's the link to the ESPHome like build service on EC2. It's really just a couple of shell scripts and then like a Docker configuration. So there's really nothing there. But the secret sauce is like really in the README, which kind of walks you through like the events and stuff to set up on AWS. And I have been working with AWS in some capacity for probably like the last 15 years, and it still blows my mind how over-engineered and complicated it is. So, but I have found that ChatGPT is really good at figuring that out. And like if you want to do something on AWS, just describe it to ChatGPT, and it will kind of help you there. So we have that now. But I'd be very open to collaborators or contributors if anybody or any other product creator wanted to do something similar to host builds for distribution.
Nate, I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that feels that way about AWS.
Oh man. You're definitely not the only one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, well, also before I worked at Nabukasa or Open Home Foundation, I was DevOps engineer working on AWS services for a
Yeah.
company.
I think
So I
that's
know what
just
you feel. I know how it is too.
Amazon in general, because my background's in technology, but now I run a product company, so we do the Amazon retail side as well as the AWS side. And they just make things so much more complicated than it really needs to be, like
Yeah.
the Amazon, retail or whatever you want to call it, like e-commerce side is maybe a little bit simpler, but not much really, not much. It's a labyrinth to navigate that stuff.
The two places I worked where I was doing cloud stuff, in that sense, we were all like GCP. So when I had to look at Amazon, I would cry a little bit and then crawl under my desk. And I thought GCP was much easier to work with, but that's just me. Anyway, we're way off topic. But
It's okay. Seems like that's our
it happens.
memo today. That's what we're doing. Just off topic derailments. No, it's great though, because we get to talk about all the nerdy shit that we've been working on over and over, and the nitty details. I love it. It makes it for. I honestly, you don't get this just talking to us in Discord or seeing where we post anywhere else. So no,
True.
this is quite lovely. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. So no, let's see. I actually don't see any other questions for you, Nate, but if you guys didn't see, I did post the link to the repo that Nate was actually talking about where he could use your help. Apollo Automation says they'll actually help you out, Nate, and that's really great because they've been doing a lot of stuff for the Works with Home Assistant program too. So I know they've been doing a lot of ESPHome related things. So yeah, if you want me to help you get connected there, I can do that. But to kind of
I'll check them
move
out.
on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, Apollo's great. We love Apollo. The next things I actually kind of wanted to talk about was big news, mostly in Home Assistant. We talked about it there, but it's actually an ESPHome thing because it's voice enhancements. We actually implemented a couple things. First off, we did microphone improvements, and I think that was all Kevin that did all that work, right, guys? I think that was Kevin that did all that work. So it hears you a lot better, which is quite lovely. Understands people a little bit clearer. We ended up doing some changes around the fuzzy guessing around commands as well too for the built-in stuff. So not the LLM side of things, but the actual assist built into Home Assistant. We actually also just implemented multiple wake words. And that's a big thing. We can do 2 wake words on one device now. And being able to say, I'm not going to trigger your guys' devices. I won't be that person. But to be able to say either the Nabu one or Mycroft or Jarvis, one of those 2 for completely different pipelines is one of the biggest things people have actually been asking for. So we don't have any actual demos of it, I don't think, but it is one of those things that I think is really big to talk about when it comes to the ESPHome side of stuff, right, Jesse?
Yeah, so just overall, yeah, Kevin's been improving the voice assistant and the micro wake word code. And I think it was in the Home Assistant stream last month that, yeah, two wake words is supported. And technically it's been supported in ESPHome itself for quite some time. We just couldn't utilize it on the Home Assistant side as we wanted to. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I can't think of two pipelines myself to set up at my house, but if I did, I would.
Yeah, the biggest use case is actually for different languages. So
yeah, multilingual. Yeah.
multilingual homes. Another use case we've seen is people talking, just controlling their home, and then the other one can be an LLM that your children can talk to and actually get answers from. So that's another unique way you can end up using it. When we launched the voice preview edition last year, I think it was actually during then, Paulus had shown off buttons to actually trigger those different aspects of voice. And now you don't have to do that. You can do it with the wake words. So it makes it a lot easier.
Yes.
Another example of things that we made and continue to evolve, right?
Yeah, right. It actually looks, see, Kevin came in. The fuzzy matching was all Mike, the voice enhancer. He is our voice guy. So shout out to Mike as well for all of the work that he does for it. So, yep, thank you for that correction, Kevin. Actually, did I miss anything else for voice? I don't think I did. No.
No.
Cool. All right. Jesse, you want to talk about some super thrilling packet transport component details?
Yeah, I mean the name doesn't sound super thrilling, but we have what was named the packet transport component. So this allows two ESPHome devices basically to talk directly to each other with a minimal protocol over top. There was a while ago there was some talk about making an API client and using the native API server and putting a client on the device as well so they can then talk, but it's quite a lot of overhead there. So that was never done. But packet transport component is now there, and basically it can use UART, so you can wire two devices together to talk. You can use UDP, so they can just talk over their Wi-Fi or Ethernet together and basically send sensor data, and I think binary sensor data. Support is still growing for different things to be able to do. I think you can actually just send generic data over as well. Not quite sure about that, but it could be. I haven't used it myself because everything goes through Home Assistant. So and we also have an upcoming PR for ESPNow support for packet transport as well. I guess alongside that, between now and the last stream, we added ESPNow support to ESPHome. I can see it's in the notes for a bit later, but I sort of jump into that as well. So ESPNow is technology provided by ESPHome to use the Wi-Fi chip on the ESP32s. We only support ESP32 at the moment in ESPHome to basically talk directly between two devices. It can work as a broadcast or sort of a unicast system. Two devices can just talk. They don't need to be connected to a Wi-Fi network. They can just send out a packet and another device can pick it up. And so packet transport will be able to go on top of that and send the structured data. One example I was using while trying to getting the ESPNow development working is I've got these remotes which are from Wiz. So Wiz, the company that makes the light bulbs, Wi-Fi light bulbs. Basically, they're remotes. You can pair them with a light bulb, and it directly talks to the light bulb using ESPNow. So with the right configuration in ESPHome, you can just pick up the button presses from these remotes and act on them, and you don't have to use the Wiz app to set up remotes. And they're not limited to just lights. They can control anything in Home Assistant. So it's quite cool as well.
That's actually really cool. Yeah. No, it makes it so much more flexible, really. Really like it. Can you use two different platforms with package transport?
Yes. So packet transport itself is generic. So it wraps the data that's to be sent with a little bit of a header, and then sends it. So if you have an nRF52 connected to an ESP32 or whatever via UART, then yeah, you can send data between the two.
Excellent. ESP, the S3 and H2 for OpenThread?
They're really quizzing you, Jesse.
I guess it depends on what you want to do there with those two. You can certainly run ESPHome on the H2 with OpenThread configured, and yes, you could put packet transport and then communicate back to an S3. I'm not sure why, but yes. I mean, if you can think of it, you can probably do it.
We're getting to that point. Yeah, I know some people have discussed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I gather that in some cases you can get a little bit better range with ESP now. I think it's able to use the radio at a slightly higher power or something. I remember some people talking about that. But it might be like an extra, 10 meters or something. I mean, it's I don't think it's going to be a huge difference, but I don't know. I know that I've seen people talking about that though. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful for you can set up a remote sensor outside of your Wi-Fi network range as long as it's within the range of another ESP32.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Yeah. It sounds like you said, it's not a fancy name, but it really has what it does is really cool. So it's pretty great stuff. All right. We actually kind of talked a bit about the framework shift already. So I don't think we need to touch on that for the technical side of things here now. But I do want to drag Nick in again because consistently, month after month, there was some memory or network optimization that Nick had actually implemented. So do you want to talk a little bit about those changes, Nick?
Sure. So, I've been testing some of my older ESP 8266 devices. I know kind of we're moving away from 8266 because I think it's 2 years from now that they're going to stop making them, or well, at least they're going to no longer guarantee they're going to keep making them. I'm sure they're probably going to keep making them for a while.
I think it's 2029. It's officially end of life.
Yeah. So, but there's still tons of these devices being deployed today. As ESPHome has grown, we've added more features, we've added new functionality, and the ESP 8266 has suffered a little bit because it is very, very flash and memory constrained. I mean, these things usually only have about 40 to 50 kilobytes maximum free RAM when, best case scenario. So I've been working on making some of my older devices continue to work with newer ESPHome versions. I think today's release will be, we've freed up about 3,000 bytes of RAM. I think next month we'll probably get another 3,000 bytes of RAM out of it. So in general, you're going to be able to use some of the devices you kind of have in a drawer because they ran out of space or ran out of RAM and are now going to be a much more stable and usable experience. And that's going to continue. We're going to keep working on that. And it's not just 8266 that's going to benefit from that. ESP32 is going to get the same benefits. I mean, not to the same extent because we haven't directly focused on it. But I think the next in 2025.11, we're going to spend a little more time on ESP32. We've had some people struggle with Bluetooth proxies and the C3 variant of the ESP32 because they have significantly less RAM than the ESP32 Classic or the ESP32 S3. So I have a couple C3 based devices that I picked up online just from various vendors, and I've been putting Bluetooth proxies on them just to see how it performs. And I'm happy to report that in 2025-10, none of them crash anymore. They all work, and you can actually proxy 3 active connections at the same time, even with a C3 chip, and it's minimal RAM. So it's kind of quite a major step forward. So if you're struggling with one of those C3 chips and you're doing a Bluetooth proxy, it means a lot more devices can become Bluetooth proxies in 2025-10. We are expecting in 2025-11 to go to ESP-IDF 5.5, which has a lot more optimizations as well on expressive side. So we'll be able to save more RAM and make these devices a lot more stable going forward.
That's great. Like, you've done so much work every time. It's not just ESPHome either. You keep doing optimizations in what we call BT Home, so for the Bluetooth proxies, and then the Home Assistant. Like, everything just keeps getting faster. So thank you, Nick.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. So actually, oh, that's interesting. Not that one. Can
I was just replying to
ESP32C6 work as a Zigbee device?
I was just replying to that in the chat, but so yes, it can. We don't have any sort of official components or anything like that for ESPHome yet, but there are some external Zigbee components that some people have put out there on GitHub to act as a Zigbee device. I don't know if I haven't used them and I haven't really looked at them, so I don't know whether you can do it with ZHA or whether you need to have Zigbee to MQTT. But it can work, and at some point we might look at officially putting a Zigbee component in. Yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah, Zigbee is more complicated because of Wi-Fi, right? It's on the same frequency as Wi-Fi, and that makes it a little bit more complicated to work with it with the ESP32 devices.
That and Zigbee itself as a protocol is very complicated and more, I guess, specific. It's more there's no real standards for Zigbee, so it's a bit of a mess. And if you go to implement something on a device, most likely like ZHA and Zigbee to MQTT have to have all of these different quirks for all the different devices because everything is implemented differently. So there's no one universal way to say, here's my sensor. Here's my, you've got so it's not the easiest thing to work with, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds like it. That seems to be the answer we get a lot when it comes to Zigbee stuff. Shout out to Nick for the backups, actually, 6+ hours. And then Nick made a change, and now it takes 15 minutes. So yes, backup speeds improved thanks to Nick. We've got it. Everything.
It's RCI speeds too now are faster, I hear.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of work to improve the CI. Some of those there's still a couple that are going to land in the next week, but I mean, the goal is to improve the developer experience. So if you're contributing to ESPHome, sometimes you're waiting for 2-3 hours for a CI runner because everything is so backed up because we're either doing builds or doing releases. So the expectation is, some of those large PRs to test starting this week will go from an hour to about 20 minutes with intelligent component grouping. The release builds are happening about 6 to 7 times faster. I mean, the releases were taking about 12 hours and we're down to about an hour and 40 minutes. Got some ideas on how to get that down to under an hour. I don't know if that's achievable, but at least we'll get pretty close. And we've just made the whole testing a lot more reliable with app package caching, some retry logic for downloads, which actually benefits everybody because if you were doing builds and using Platform IO, you would sometimes find that if they're downloading stuff from Cloudflare, you get a random 502 and the whole thing would just halt. So now it retries. And we've changed how we're doing the runners on GitHub. So we now have a lot more disk space and you won't have random failures due to running out of disk space. So definitely the CI is a lot more stable and we're going to continue improving that. And it's going to benefit all of our contributors.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be great. So speed improvements, not only in the product, but also through the whole development process.
Yes.
Excellent. We did want to, you already did your touch on ESP now, which is great. You actually got a whole bunch of people really interested in that side of things, Jesse. So expect that to get more popular thanks to you. I actually have a note here about Arduino JSON, and that I actually have no context for other than it looked important. So I would love to know more about why I have this noted down.
So yeah, Arduino JSON is a library originally written for Arduino. It's no longer requires Arduino, but I guess they just kept the name, similar to us as ESPHome that runs non-ESP chips. Basically, it's a parser and a builder for JSON. So we can take a structured object and output the string, the JSON string, for sending, and we can parse incoming JSON from HTTP requests or upcoming responses from Home Assistants, actions. And so during this year, there was a big upgrade to Arduino JSON from version 6 to 7, which made a bunch of breaking changes for people's configurations that may have been using certain features. But the improvements we've gained from that have been much better now. And I think the upcoming Resonate, to be renamed, protocol is going to be using it heavily for the music and media player stuff.
Yeah, there's a little spoiler right there. We haven't talked much about Resonate. It's okay. Its website just got stood up to talk a little bit more about it, but it is something we are working on to help music assistant side of things. So it's actually a nice little slide in there, Jesse.
Still kind of in the oven, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely is. Still is. But we're really excited about the possibilities we have for Resonate. So, and again, that's code name is where it's not going to be its actual name, as much as we are very saddened by that. But tell me more about this camera JPEG encoder, because that seems like pretty big. How does that end up how does that work? Tell me more.
So I'm not super familiar with it. I didn't end up reviewing. I started reviewing the code, but it ended up getting reviewed and merged, maybe by Nick. I'm not quite sure, or maybe it was by Jonathan. But how I believe it works is that right now the cameras, the ESP32 cameras that we support in ESPHome are all JPEG cameras. And so this encoder is basically trying to move out some of the code from there and also allow some of the other ESP32 cameras that are not JPEG based to work with ESPHome, and potentially be able to draw something, create a fake or virtual camera feed, I think, to send through. I'm not super familiar with it, but that's what I'm
still pretty early in the development on that. I think there's a lot more to come. So probably something we'll come back to in a couple months.
That's good to know.
In the next stream that we have next year, there'll be definitely more to talk about that.
Yeah, that'd actually be really good. I'm glad we touched on it a little bit now, because the introduction of its the small improvements that we're doing here and there, just like those, are really good to kind of talk about early and then move into what we actually will be, what it'll look like in the future. So actually, I've reached the end of the stuff that I have for my notes. We didn't touch on everything we actually did from February overall. We did touch on most of it. Was there anything you guys wanted to talk about particularly before we see if we have any questions or from the viewers or anything?
Sure, I'll talk about, we did a security audit this release, an internal security audit. We didn't find any privilege escalation, so that's good. But we did find quite a bit of hardening opportunities. And we have a completely new authentication system for OTA coming out. So sorry, Nate. Yeah, that might cause you a little stress. But moving away from MD5 to SHA-256, and lots of improvements just in the OTA process for when you have a poor Wi-Fi connection. So previously, if you had a poor Wi-Fi connection, you might find the device reset in the middle of the OTA process. That is now fixed. So definitely you'll get a better OTA experience. And if you do happen to be, updating your devices over a VPN on the other side of the world, which surprisingly happens, at least for me, quite a bit. And it works. And I can even say, even if you're on United Airlines on their Wi-Fi and a VPN, I can still OTA my devices and not feel too nervous about them not booting back up. So, so that works now. And I also want to highlight, we deprecated API passwords. I think it was probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we added noise encryption, and we've kind of quietly been pretty quiet about that. But now since we plan on removing them next year, we've been adding some warnings and some notifications in the build process. So if you're still using API passwords, please switch to API encryption. It is actually secure versus the API passwords, because everything is still in plain text if you're using a password. So you'll get some notifications in the build process when that happens. Everything has been set up to kind of push you that way, but we're just going to be a little more verbose about that, so nobody gets left behind and nobody has a surprise next year.
Yeah, and the password, the password will be removed in the January release next year.
Okay, so will this be a YAML breaking change that ends up happening then?
So it is no breaking change to the YAML. It is completely backwards compatible. So if your device only supports MD5 authentication, it will still work. But there's like a 3-month window. So starting next year, we'll start removing MD5 support from the firmware for newer versions. So that means you can't downgrade with a old MD5 client, but not a big deal. You can still serial flash if you need to. It just means you won't be able to go from like ESPHome 2026.1 to 2025 without doing a serial flash. But usually people don't downgrade, 5 or 6 releases in the past, so probably not a problem for most people.
So yeah, it is directly more work for Nate to update his mobile app.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, now I'm a little bit nervous, so we're gonna have to figure out what needs to be done there. But
it's actually not too bad. It's just one more API flag, and instead of MD5ing the OTA, you have to SHA-256 it. So it probably won't be that much work on your side.
All right, that's not a big deal. I think if I remember correctly, the challenge was not necessarily the update itself, was just convincing the mobile app to like open a raw TCP socket, or I can't remember if it was TCP or UDP, whatever. Just like that's not trivial to do on if you're using one of these like client-side frameworks for mobile app development. So
yeah, you should be good. It should be a simple if you get this flag, then send it in 256. Otherwise, send it MD5. So it should be pretty simple for you. But
fair. Okay, cool.
Just make sure you do it before 2026.1, or it'll stop working.
All right.
So we should also talk about the dashboard. So the dashboard has traditionally used HTTP polling. So every time you have the dashboard open, it's constantly asking about devices and if they can ping them. So we switched that all to WebSockets. So no more polling delays when devices go on and offline. So things are a little bit snappier. And we've fixed a couple issues with resolution. So when you click view logs, we've solved 2 problems. So the logs command used to wait for the UI or the dashboard to do the DNS resolution. Now you get immediate feedback, because if it's not the cache, it starts right away. And we've also fixed an issue where when you're running logs, if there were external components, it might have had to go to GitHub and download or update those components before even showing you the logs. So sometimes that could be a 5 to 30-second delay before you could even see logs. So we've solved that problem too. So a lot better dashboard log viewing experience. The whole thing is just a little bit snappier. So definitely a good quality of life experience improvement there.
So a question here about pressing the update all button, and it obviously does all of them, even the ones that are offline. At some stage, the dashboard will have some more work done to it so that the jobs are all put on a queue instead of right now. Right now, it's just a linear process, and it actually iterates the list of files in the directory. It'll get changed at some point to actually, load all the files, load all the commands, put them on a queue, and then run that queue. And potentially, yeah, we can. If it's offline, we'll be able to, we'll compile. We'll probably still compile the firmware so that when it does come back online, the next time you try to do it, it'll be ready to go and actually flash it. Or potentially we can actually just sit it there in the queue until it comes online, and it can automatically continue the process from there. That's still up. We're still talking about what to do there.
Also, we keep saying dashboard, but I think officially it was renamed to ESPHome Device Builder. Yeah.
Yeah, the code all still says dashboard. So
yeah.
We've
been named a couple times.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should also talk about the device onboarding improvements. So we've been working on in the Made for ESPHome program. So one of those requirements is improv BLE. So we made improv quite a bit faster, and it now works with passive advertising. So if your device is like your Bluetooth proxies are set up for passive scans, you'll actually see the name of Home Assistant. There's a couple of things in Home Assistant that are coming next month for generally, like if you factory reset a device and it was using improv, it wouldn't come back up as a discovery. Just lots of small quality of life improvements for improv. And we have another Home Assistant change coming next month. So when you set up Wi-Fi with improv, it would take you to this URL, which would bounce you back into your Home Assistant instance. If it can discover the ESPHome device right away, so you'll get a seamless transition from the improv setup to setting it right there, switching to the config flow for the ESPHome device. So end to end, you're not having to go find the ESPHome device in Discovery after the improv has successfully sent the Wi-Fi credentials to the device. So it's a much better seamless experience of setting up a new device. And one thing that we've also focused on for onboarding is on ESP32 IDF, we didn't have DNS server support for captive portal. So when you would go to set up a device that, out of box for the first time, that is like a vendor device, you'd have to go configure the Wi-Fi, and you would typically connect to the access point on the ESP32 and open your phone, and you would have to guess what the IP address was that you need to go to configure Wi-Fi. Now, when you open your browser, we've got a proper captive portal, and immediately it'll just pop up and show you the Wi-Fi config. This worked on Arduino, but it didn't work on IDF because there was no DNS server. But now that has been solved, there's a small DNS server built in on IDF as well.
Nice. Yeah, I actually noticed when that change went in because one of my Apollo, I think my plant sensor popped up for improv, and I was like, I've never seen this happen before. That's lovely. So yeah, I've noticed it makes it way smoother. It's like a really nice onboarding for it overall, I think. And someone's commenting on a couple of things for this release. Because we haven't talked about October.
Did we talk about action responses yet?
No, I was getting to that one. So yeah, action responses. So ESPHome has always had the ability to call Home Assistant actions from within the YAML. So you could say you could call the action light.toggle and give it the entity ID in Home Assistant, and it could basically toggle any light in Home Assistant. And you could basically build some automations directly onto your device. There have been, I don't know when responses were actually added into Home Assistant itself, but at some stage, certain things were moved from, I think the weather forecast attributes were moved from an attribute to an actual service or an action call with the actual response. And so you would say weather.get forecasts, and then Home Assistant will return back the information there. And so ESPHome never supported that for, it currently still doesn't. It does in the beta release, and will in the 2025.10 release, basically. So from your ESPHome device, you can actually get the weather forecasts from Home Assistant, or I can't think of any other examples, Nick, for what actions might response. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, when I am using, I can get the list of items from a to-do list.
You can pull stuff from the database as well. There's a service to get long-term statistics. So if you want to display long-term statistics on your device, you could, pull it that way now.
So you can basically grab the history of a sensor,
yes,
sort of, as statistics. But yeah, no, I use it for, I have a to-do list for my son. And so I have a to-do list built in Home Assistant, and my e-paper screen will grab the lists of items and then display them on the screen. So I don't have to hard code anything on the device in terms of those list items, which is pretty cool.
And Jesse did that after I went through it.
I copied you.
List.
I did it slightly differently, but yes.
You did. You did it more efficiently, because I took bits and pieces of what I could figure out how to do it. And you were like, why are you doing it this hard? And I was like, I don't know better.
And I happen to have a touchscreen e-paper screen, so he can actually touch them, and they actually get struck off on the screen.
Nice.
It takes about a second, and then they're struck off, which is quite cool.
Great. Yeah, that's one of the things that has been requested in the house now with the dashboards. Is like, oh, well, we need the e-paper ones that are touchscreen, and I'm like, you get what you get right now, guys. That's fine.
It's hard to find a touchscreen e-paper that can work with ESPHome.
Yeah, when I was looking into it, to be fair, it was a year ago, and at this point, the e-paper landscapes changed quite a bit, actually. But there were like additional sheets of glass for touch capacity you could put onto e-paper that I didn't end up doing, because I don't know if it would actually be supported by ESPHome at all. So, but it was one of those things that I did notice was available. But yeah, touchscreen e-papers are not a big thing yet. I think as their popularity grows, it might be, though.
Yes.
Yeah, so those actions are great, because I think you and I were talking about that in the first place, right, Jesse? Trying to figure out, the way you phrased it to me was the source of truth. Where do I want the source of truth at for it, to figure out how it would actually end up running? And when checking off these list items, we were talking about for that specifically. So yeah, no, this is great. Now I get to rewrite my whole project.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it's made it a lot easier. I was, as you were doing as well, I was hard coding it to build the UI itself, and then we swapped it out to pull the information from Home Assistant. This does require Home Assistant 2025.11. It's not merged yet into Home Assistant, but it will be merged before the next Home Assistant release and available to use there.
Nice. So I can wait until next month before I start.
You don't have to do it yet. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you.
No, yes, I pulled in the ESPHome code into my production Home Assistant instance as a custom component, so I could use it now. Using Nick's awesome GitHub guests that grabs the PRs.
Yeah, that thing's helpful. It's good for testing. So
very helpful.
I need to add translations to it at some point, but it works. So
yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
We actually do have enhanced e-paper display support coming with 2025.10 in ESPHome, right?
Yeah, so I started again and made a brand new e-paper component, basically. So most of our e-paper stuff is under the component name WaveShare e-paper. It supports displays that are not WaveShare, and it supports a lot of the actual WaveShare displays are not actually WaveShare displays. They're manufactured by another company, and WaveShare sort of sells the kits and makes it easy to use them with their boards and things like that. So it ended up being a whole thing. The problem with that component is that it's a blocking component, and so when you try to update the screen, it will update the screen, run the Lambda or however you've got your display code done, which takes maybe a few milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds. And then it actually tries to send that data to the display. Now, depending on the size of the display, that can take anywhere from less than a second to 20 seconds. During that entire time, the ESPHome loop is blocked and nothing else can happen on the device, including API sensors. Absolutely nothing can happen. It's just stuck. And so I rewrote a new ePaper_SPI component because it's generically ePaper and it talks using SPI, the SPI bus. And so I wrote it in a way that it's non-blocking. And so each step that it does, it will do it'll do one step at a time, and it tries to basically keep everything under a certain time threshold as well. So sending the actual data to the device, which takes, I think for the one I was testing, it takes about I think it takes about 8 seconds to send the full color. There's only got one model, which is a full color model. It takes many seconds, like 8 seconds or something, to send the actual data to the device from the ESP. And so what I did there is actually I send part of the data, then hand back control to the loop. And then I come back next loop, send more data. And the device handles it just fine. It doesn't care because once you've sent all the data, then you send another command to say, actually show on the screen. The showing on the screen takes another 20 seconds, but that's handled on the screen itself, and ESPHome doesn't care about that part. It just tells it, says, show it, and then it's fine. And so now there's this newer component which hopefully get some contributors moving the models from the WaveShare one into this new one to add support for that, and hopefully have a much more improved support for ePaper and ESPHome.
It'd be great, more like a generic support rather than something that's so focused for WaveShare that's kind of getting shoved into other parts for it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that there's some WaveShare models in there that are like the GWE, the good something or other models, Goodwell or something like that. It's a whole nother manufacturer of panels. So yeah, it's nice to have a more generic one.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm excited about that. Obviously, we keep working on our ePaper stuff. So, but things, and like I said, things change so rapidly with ePaper. I start working on the project and then something changes and I'm like, well, shit, now I have to start over again. So thank you again for that as well. I actually noticed that there's a Home Assistant API improvements that are coming out as well. That's actually interesting. Is that part of the action responses?
So mostly the action response stuff, yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, anything else that Nick ended up pulling some stuff out that I didn't have noted. So
yeah, there's a couple comments to highlight in the studio chat.
Yeah, great. I got one here, the ePaper news we already talked about. Robert here just wanted to say thank you. We keep a backup of YAML when deleted in ESPHome. Ended up saving them nice for him. I absolutely know what it's like losing a whole bunch of work and then having to start over from scratch. So that's definitely one of those things that I completely agree with. I'm glad that ended up getting adjusted. Let's see.
So this one here, Nick, you wanted?
Yeah, so we actually fixed this in Home Assistant 2025-11, so next month's release. So
nice.
Let's see.
There was I was going to say, I saw one, I think it's in the Home Assistant chat. please rename the WaveShare ePaper component.
Yeah.
We generally avoid just arbitrarily renaming components, and I think it's, Jesse kind of alluded to the approach with this will be displays will effectively be migrated from the old component to the new one, and then as that happens, you'll get the benefits of the new component, and people can just change it, you know, as the display becomes available in the new component, and that way you can continue to use the old one. We don't break anybody's YAML, you know, or configuration otherwise by doing a rename like that. And you know, we'll put a notification on the documentation page that, you know, this component is deprecated. Please use the other one. We've done that with some other components before, but yeah, we do generally try to avoid just flat out renaming stuff out of the blue. Like there's got to be a really good reason for that to happen. So.
Yay.
Yeah, so let us know if the OTA is more stable. I mean, certainly open an issue if you're still having trouble. We put a lot of work into improving stability there. So hopefully it solves all the problems we've seen with those poor Wi-Fi connection chips. Fingers crossed, you know.
Another interesting point, I learned about this several months ago, maybe even a year ago or more. But for those of you using little ESPHome modules, if you have those plugged into anything, there's actually a C3 based variant of those, and you'll get the benefits of an ESP32 C3. And it's literally, they're pin compatible. So you can just pull one, plug in the other one, change the board type in your config and rebuild. And then you'll get the additional like memory horsepower, you know, and flash of a C3 module. So food for thought if anybody's looking to swap, you know, if the 8266 is really not meeting your needs and you have a board that uses that form factor, there's a little bit of an upgrade path there. So.
So Bluetooth question. So can you build the ability to change Bluetooth devices from 3 active to multiple devices with a rolling connection? I'm not actually sure what this question is asking, but so with the Bluetooth proxy, it's 3 active connections at a time. So if you happen to have an active connection open, it doesn't matter, well, it's just cumulative. So if you have 10 Bluetooth devices, but only 2 of them need an active connection at the same time, it's just going to keep cycling between them. And you actually can increase that up to 9. There is a configuration option in the Bluetooth proxy to go up to 9. I don't recommend setting it above 5, especially in Wi-Fi, but it's about 1 kilobyte of RAM per connection that you add in there, and it's continuously used all the time. But you know, we set it for 3 by default because we don't know if you're gonna, you know, exhaust all your RAM, but you can safely change it to 5 for almost all use cases. Yeah,
most of the Bluetooth devices, they don't keep the connection open all the time anyway, right? I have switchbot blinds, and so when I want to do something, it will connect, it will tell the blind to move, and it disconnects again after that. The status of the blinds is still like broadcast through the advertisements, and as many of the sensors and things like that. So I think there's a few like lights that stay permanently connected, but otherwise a lot of the devices don't.
Yeah, I'd say 90% of the devices that work with Home Assistant don't stay connected all the time. They'll just connect for 10 seconds, do some commands, and then disconnect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well then, did you see any others aside from this recent one, Jesse, that we might have missed on the Bluetooth stuff?
Having a quick read back of some of the comments now.
Oh, well, Garnet wants to know, is there a way to block one BLE of a device?
I'm not sure what they're asking. What do they mean by block?
Like not use one of the proxies for a specific BLE device, maybe?
I mean, maybe they're having a connection problem to that specific device. The newer versions of Home Assistant for the last 3 months will actually remember connection failures to a specific device, and it will try a different proxy if they're having trouble with one specific one. So once you get a failure, it'll try the next best proxy. So if you have, you know, like connection issues, it's add more proxies closer to it, and you probably just go away. So.
Well then, I don't think we have anything else. Ooh, I saw that one too. I wasn't sure about that one.
I mean, so the NRA52 component, like this, so the support for the platform is still very basic. We don't have SPI support yet. So this new ePaper or the WaveShare ePaper components won't work with it directly. But once SPI support has been added as a sort of main part for it, then I don't see why not. ESPHome builds these things in a way that is generic across the different platforms. So as long as you're going through these SPI component, then yeah, you can use anything really. I don't know how fast those processes are to do these things, but yeah, why not?
Awesome. Oops, that's not what I meant. Sorry. I just tapped into the screen, did what it wanted.
I did that earlier when I was trying to cough. I clicked on the screen and I clicked the comment instead of being able to get to the mute button.
We're great. We're professionals. Love
it. Oh yeah.
Oh man. Okay. I think we're actually. I think
so
that's it.
This one more for Bluetooth. The active scan thing. I started working on this. I built support for ESPHome devices to be able to dynamically switch between active and passive. And I believe Nick had started working on some of the Home Assistant side and the Bleak side, which needed a lot of work, I think, if I remember correctly.
So it's all working. The problem is we need a database of which devices need active scans and which devices need passive scans. And building that giant database is kind of where we're kind of stuck, because we need to index every single Bluetooth integration and force it to register how often it needs active scans for, and whether it needs active scans at all, and the duration of those scans. So actually the infrastructure to switch it and dynamically manage it is mostly there. The database of whether it needs it or not is not so much. So
we need some sort of
that has been the challenge. Yeah. So.
Like, yeah, a database project. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I built something for my own proxies, a template select in my YAML that allows me to switch them between active and passive on the fly. Because they started draining some of my batteries, and I don't need the active all the time. So I got that in there as a template.
I mean, I have mine all set to passive. None of my devices actually need active scans at all.
It's hard, but you don't need it until you need it.
Yeah, you need it. You need it.
You don't know that you need it until you need it.
1 minute to set up some SwitchBot device, And we actually we solved that in I think last Home Assistant version. It'll connect to the cloud and download all the MAC addresses and their model numbers, so you don't even need that anymore for SwitchBot. So.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Anything from us or from Konnected that could be a good tease? I don't know if Nate's got anything coming up, but for not ESPHome, not specifically, but we will, the Home Assistant will be doing a live stream in the middle of November for something big. So keep an eye out for that. I can't say much more. That's a spoiler. That's all you get. Nate, do you guys have anything from Konnected that you might want to tease?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the asker is asking. I mean, we are working on little features here and there. Like, I'm trying to think. I mean, the YGAN keypad is one of them. I'm trying to build in support in that in our builder. I think what really my focus is on is trying to build like little features and capabilities into our firmware builder YAML generator thing, the GUI that goes on top of that, because probably a lot of people in this audience already can make that stuff happen. But there are a lot of people in our larger audience that just want a feature to turn on and off. I've thought about different things. I mean, the Nick talking about the Bluetooth proxy memory improvements, that gives me some ideas to try stuff with, BLE or Bluetooth presence detection in the garage. We already have devices mounted next to your garage opener. So can I use a Bluetooth proxy or some kind of BLE detection to detect a car or a kid, rolling up? That's one challenge that I have with, my family is like, we have kids that need to get in and out of the garage, and they always forget to close it. And then you don't want to give a kid necessarily a remote control to, So I solved the closing issue with home assistant automations and mobile presence and stuff like that. But the opening issue is a harder one. So maybe a BLE tag that you can put in the kid's backpack so that the garage opens when they get home. I don't know, those ideas, but I'm always open to feedback. So community.konnected.io, it runs on the the Discord platform like the home assistant community. So that's our official community, and I'm in there every day. So post your ideas and we'll see what we can do.
It's awesome. Thank you. I like that we inspired you too. And also we're making your job a little harder as well. So you get to find that on this side.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
It's never boring. That's what we say. It's never boring.
Things are always changing. Yep.
Yeah.
I just posted the link to my Bluetooth. I got a question asking for my Bluetooth active passive switcher. So I just posted a link to my configs for that as well.
Yeah, awesome. and we've I had made some updates to the, I'm thinking of other capabilities for the alarm control panel component in ESPHome. The most recent update that I contributed back was adding like a auto bypass feature, because again, I'm not trying to throw my kids under the bus, but kids always leave stuff open, especially windows or garage doors or fridges or toilet seats or whatever it happens to be. So the kids leave the window open in their bedroom, and then you have your automation and everybody leaves, and then as soon as you leave the house, the alarm goes off because the window was open. So we solved that. There's an auto bypass feature, which basically bypasses sensor if it's left open at the time when the alarm is armed. And that has saved, my family, because my family hates all the home automation stuff that I do, and because my house is always an experiment. I'm not sure about you guys, but the other thing that
we all have that problem.
I'm sure it's not an uncommon issue. The other thing that I wanted to solve, and this was an argument with me and my partner the other night, was because the alarm went off in the night, and it was because we were outside and it came in. But I in the alarm control panel component, there's not the capability to have like a different response based on the arming mode. So if it's armed away, versus armed night, if the alarm is triggered, perhaps it should alarm differently in those two circumstances. So that might be something that I take a look at some point in the not too distant future, because I feel like that would be helpful for many people.
And that's how we build new features, right? It's like there's some little need that comes up, and I told Jesse last week I built in the thermostat component support for humidity. So after this release, I'll do a PR for that too. But there's always new things coming up, right?
Yeah. Dan, there's one question here. I don't know how you guys push it to the thing, but by Keith, the bypass sounds awesome. How do I turn that on? It's now in our app in like the configurator. So when you set up standalone alarm panel, we call it in our app standalone alarm panel, but it essentially uses the template alarm panel component of ESPHome, and it configures that for you in the back end. So there's just a checkbox per sensor that you can enable it, and then if you're rolling your own ESPHome config, then it's in the documentation.
Excellent. They tell you to steal from Malarmo. Check out. They do a good job.
Yeah, I definitely have.
Borrow.
It's not stealing, it's not borrowing. That's how open source works, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's all for the greater benefit of the world, And I have great deal of respect for Alarmo, RadGDO, Home Assistant, all you guys who've contributed stuff that make people's homes smarter. So I do my part, everybody else does theirs.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Speaking of people doing their part, making games written in ESPHome, I haven't actually seen that yet. But Richard, if you're not aware of the ESPHome Discord server, you should definitely throw this in a show-off channel somewhere for it, because that would be really cool to actually see. I'd love to know more about how you're actually doing that. Do you know of others, Jesse?
I have no idea, but are you going to be running Doom in ESPHome?
I hope so. I mean, what more would you want?
That's what I'm expecting when I see this. Does it run Doom? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Does it run Doom? That's it. That's a great marketing thing. Just be like, hey guys, you can play Doom in ESPHome. You don't even need to use it for your smart home.
That just needs to be the first line on the ESPHome homepage. It runs Doom. You don't need to know anything.
It runs Doom. Oh, ID software is going to come after us.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
That's great though. Yeah, no, seriously. That's pretty cool, Richard. I love that you're actually games. What? The things people do with our stuff is bananas, honestly. I love it. It's crazy. Okay. An emu on ESPHome. No emus. Kiwis.
Oh my
You got to get it right. Jesse's got the kiwis. I'm awful. I'm sorry, Jesse. Oh, geez. I don't see anything else since talking about sneak peeks and what Nate was actually talking about. Can it run Battletoads? But that's Justin, isn't that? Justin behind the Apollo handle talking about Battletoads. Beautiful. I love it. Coding a game in YAML sounds really painful, but it'd be cool. Like saying you could code it in YAML, I don't know. It's just so you could do it.
You get a few of the Apollo M1 matrices tiled
there you
together,
go.
and you've got a big giant screen to
display.
play games on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just have it all go all the way down. That'd be great. Great. I'm gonna figure out how to do that now. Give me the game. I need 2 more M1s, Justin, and then I'll put it up on my wall, show it off, just like yes, we'll make it happen. Yes.
Or next bonus project. Yeah. I need to get more stuff on these shelves behind me, but we'll get there for the next stream. I've got 6 months.
Yeah, we'll see. Normally in April, the Open Home Foundation does the State of the Open Home. But I will announce it like I normally do in all of the spaces when we do another live stream at the beginning of next year. I actually think that's a great point to stop then. Yeah, we'll actually let everyone go through their holidays. You won't see anything from us from ESPHome until sometime next year. You'll definitely see more from the Home Assistant team in a couple weeks for 2025-11 release. And right after that, another thing we're actually doing, and you should hear more about that during the Home Assistant release itself. Before we actually wanted to go, I wanted to do one quick reminder because we actually didn't this go, and that is subscribe to Home Assistant Cloud with Nabukasa. It actually pays for all of us to be here. Normally on the Home Assistant channel, we have a nice little media thing that goes loops and shows all a cute connection on how Cloud goes to Nabukasa, goes to the foundation. I don't have that on this channel. That is my bad. So you get to hear my little spiel instead. Getting Home Assistant Cloud or any of the hardware that Nabukasa makes supports us here at the Open Home Foundation and Keith there at the Nabukasa. So continue to get those for us. You keep supporting us. We've got all the links in for everybody where you can actually come and join and help out both ESPHome and Konnected. And from there, we'll actually see you guys next time. Have a good one.
See y'all.